for this one, we have Ethereum Classic. So I'm going to invite Terry Culver on board, and he's going to give us an update on some of the latest developments with Ethereum Classic.
So thank you. Hello, everybody. I am Terry Culver from Ethereum Classic Labs. And I, just by way of background, I come to blockchain not as a developer, but really as a humanitarian. Most of my work is as a policy advisor in emerging markets and developing countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, Latin America. And what I'm really trying to do is to find ways for this technology to help people where help is needed most. Our team consists of a startup accelerator in San Francisco. We have an investments program, a grants program. We have the ETC core team, which helps build and maintain the Ethereum Classic blockchain. And in case you don't know, ETC is one of the oldest and world's major public blockchains. I'll talk a little bit more about Ethereum Classic in a minute, but first I want to talk about something that relates to this conference, to the blockchain community, and in all too real terms, the crisis that's occurring all over the US, and that's the struggle for equality. I mention this for two reasons. The first is that the crisis in Minneapolis, New York, Oakland, and elsewhere is a shared one for which we're all responsible for resolving. While blockchain is meant to fulfill, and it does fulfill, all kinds of social and economic needs for everyone, let's keep that in the perspective of the institutional racism, the systemic violence, the voicelessness that people are now protesting. The second reason I mention this is that blockchain is at its origin a protest movement. It was Occupy Wall Street in the cloud. It has its own commitment to equality through the value of censorship resistance. The idea that anyone can participate in the community or transact on the network, all are equal. There is no intermediary or authority that can keep you out, cancel your transaction, or silence your voice. I mean, think about it. It's a technology that is by design meant to ensure inclusivity through trustless networks. This is a powerful concept. It's an extremely fragile one also, I think. And I'm afraid that as blockchain grows, this principle is really what's most at risk. And so I want to make sure, and in others, that we don't lose sight of it. With that, I'll get on with Ethereum Classic and ETC Labs. So we were established in 2018 after a couple of years of research and thinking about where we could make the most difference in the blockchain community. And we felt that Ethereum Classic had values that we believed in. We also felt that it was a blockchain that had enormous potential and could use some help and some investment. So we first established the accelerator in San Francisco, and we then branched out into the core team and to the grants and investments program. And our mission really is built on three things. The first is to build high quality technology. This is really a fundamental thing. If the technology doesn't work, if it's not looking long term at ways that this technology can help people and help the world, then we're not interested. The second is creating communities of value. And by this, we mean networks of people who can engage in peer-to-peer transactions, who can store value, who can create value on their own in inclusive ways, where they have a certain amount of self-determination. And then the third is to fulfill the social promise of blockchain. And that gets back to the idea of trying to help where help is needed most. At the end of the day, you can have the best technology in the world, but if it's not built in a way that people can access, if it's not built with a social purpose in mind, then it's unlikely to see the kinds of adoption and the kinds of impact that I think we're all trying to have. A word about Ethereum Classic. It was launched in 2016, as many of you probably know, with the DAO fork. Contentious at the time and contentious for many still. Since then, Ethereum Classic has grown quite a bit. it's unlike other chains in that there was no ICO, there's no treasury, there's no central funding mechanism, there's no foundation. It is at its core a decentralized community that has been resilient enough, and I think had members who are committed enough to continue to grow. And this growth is illustrated by the hard fork that we had just 2 days ago called Phoenix. This was the third hard fork of this year. The first was Atlantis, the second was Agartha, and the last was Phoenix. And all three are part of a long-term plan to make sure that Ethereum Classic was technically equivalent to Ethereum. So we've brought all of the hard forks from Ethereum over to Ethereum Classic so that we have that compatibility. Phoenix essentially brought the Istanbul changes into Ethereum Classic. And the purpose for this was twofold. One, we wanted to put Ethereum Classic in a position where it could focus on interoperability with Ethereum and where we could start to innovate both on Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. And the second is that we fully believe in the viability and the utility of the Ethereum stack. We think that proof of work is valuable and has a role to play in the Ethereum world, so we're going to stick with that. And we think that the Ethereum and Ethereum Classic communities together are large enough to be able to sustain both a proof of stake and a proof of work consensus algorithm blockchain. More specifically, I'd like to talk about some of the projects we're working on. These are our core team projects, so our developers are hard at work every day. First of all, with the basic protocol upgrades, so they're responsible for making sure that the hard fork goes off without a hitch. The other things that they're working on include the EVM LLVM, and this is basically a lower level virtual machine that allows you to write smart contracts in languages other than Solidity. To us, this is a really important feature because it allows developers who write in different languages access to smart contracts. It opens up the blockchain and the programmability of blockchain to many developers who haven't been able to access it so far. It also, highlights a principle that we work on quite a bit, which is there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. LLVM is a proven technology. It's a proven language that's been around for many years. It's seen millions of dollars of investment from universities, from corporations. It's well known, it's tested, and it's trusted. When possible, we'd like to bring those kinds of features into blockchain. As an emerging technology, it's done in other areas to help expand the blockchain, to help make it stronger, and to help developers trust it. Another thing we're working on is the OpenRPC work. And this is really important because it basically is a specification for defining APIs with a whole new suite of tooling. And this highlights another principle that we work on, which is what we call bigger than blockchain. So, OpenRPC is applicable to Ethereum Classic. It's applicable to Ethereum. It's being deployed in both. But it's not just about blockchain. It's versatile. It could be applied to all kinds of different softwares and platforms. And so where we see the opportunity to build something that could help both blockchain and beyond, we will do that. Again, we think this builds trust, it builds utility, and it builds adoption. The other thing I'd like to mention is the core client that we have developed and maintained called CoreGeth. This is basically a version of Ethereum Foundation Geth that we've developed and we maintain. And this was part of Phoenix hard fork. This covers Phoenix, which I talked about. One of the other things we work on is the startup accelerator. So we contract with, we invest in any number of startups from who are working on core challenges within blockchain. There's a few features here that I'll just highlight. One, Second State, which works on EVM and worked with us on the LLVM project. Another is Prescripto.
Hey, sorry about everybody. Sorry about that. We'll try and get Terry back on. He was on quite a roll, so definitely want to hear the end of that presentation and see if we can get. I think we'll just talk it out until we can figure out any of the tech issues that are going on. So I think one of the last slides we're talking about looking at some of the core projects, and so where's the focus there?
So on the project on startups that are, really trying to build both either the infrastructure on blockchain or drive adoption. So we've invested in a number of projects that are working in emerging markets around healthcare, around access to finance, those kinds of things. And then on the grants program, we really use that to focus on the major challenges of blockchain that are universal, not just only those specific to ETC. And so the themes that we focus on are, decentralized storage, scalability, innovation and proof of work, particularly around reducing the power consumption, and some other things. We've, partnered, for example, with Swarm, a longstanding Ethereum project on decentralized storage. We've launched a partnership with Gitcoin, which, we're really excited about, and they're great to work with. And we've also launched a partnership with a gas station network, again, to help just build out the infrastructure of Ethereum Classic and deal with some of the universal challenges that blockchains face. So I'll leave it right there. I know everybody's been patient with the technical difficulties, so thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more on the I know the gas station partnership. That was pretty interesting development. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's really a graceful concept that deals with one of the basic hurdles you have in using the blockchain, which is you need gas to be able to transact. And so what the gas station network lets you do is it lets you access that gas when you need it, rather than having to go and open a wallet and purchase some and transfer it in. It's the grease that makes the wheels turn. And we felt that just that principle, something that makes it easier for people to use the blockchain, is something that we wanted to promote and support.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. You're kind of abstracting away that kind of constant need to hold and use the native unit, and just kind of make it easier on the consumer side to interact with a lot of these applications on the front end.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, we need to really start thinking more about adoption, and the user experience, and what's going to make it easier for people to use this incredible technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's coming up this year? So we just had Phoenix hard fork yesterday. Little bumps in the road, but it seems like the patches got put back out. So it seems like it's all good on that front. What's coming up next in like the next 6 to 7 months?
I think there's a couple things that we're really focused on. One is really around the LLVM. So that's allowing developers to write smart contracts in languages other than Solidity. So opening up the programmability of the blockchain to many more developers. This to us is crucial. And LLVM it's a trusted software that's seen millions of dollars of investment from universities and corporations. So it's something that developers know and are familiar with. So we're really going to be building out the LLVM feature for both Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. And the second is really around the grants program. So looking at groups that are trying to help answer the big questions about blockchain. So, TPS, scalability, storage, let's really feed some of those projects so that, they can help us all deploy a better blockchain.
Definitely something to look forward to. Unfortunately, with technical difficulties, before we have to run over to main stage, where can people stay in touch with you and more in touch with the project, learn about the latest development?
Yeah, so you can contact me at terry.c@etclabs.org. or on Twitter at RealETClassic. To learn more about ETC Labs, etclabs.org, and there's also a community website run by the Ethereum Classic Co-op, one of our partners and a great contributor to the Ethereum Classic community, and that website is ethereumclassic.org.
Perfect. Thank you, Terry. That was the best opening statement so far. Really, really appreciate the words. Love the message, and I hope we talk soon.
Me too. Thanks again for hosting us and listening.
Yeah.
A real pleasure.
Perfect. All right. I'm getting calls now.
Okay.
Everyone is moving over to the main stage. So sessions will come up later in the afternoon once the main stage sessions are done. So hope to see you back here, and we'll see everyone on the main stage shortly.
Okay. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.